Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about common traits among autistic women, women who are diagnosed with autism. And this was requested. This is some of the patterns that I see while practicing, but in general, these characteristics can be common with men and women. But what we do see is that a lot of times women are misdiagnosed or diagnosed later in their life because there was a lot more research on men with autism, and it's different. It does actually show up differently. I know some of you guys get mad at me when I say men and women are different. That's just my perspective. I see how prominent men and women are different. Of course, they're also similar in a lot of ways, and not men. Women are different from each other, and not everyone's the same. But I do think it's important to accept the fact that there might be, at least for me, this might not be for everybody. This is just the way I practice. When I see couples, it helps me to see patterns so that I can help my next patients, my potential caseload for my career. If I see often a lot of autistic women do this, it helps me to know, okay, this is probably something that I'm leaning into. This is something that I will keep in mind so that I can treat these patients further. If I'm working with couples, for example, and I see a lot of women are coming into couples therapy telling me he doesn't listen to me, and a lot of men are saying all we do is fight. One of the most common reasons why men come into couples therapy and why women come into couples therapy. He's saying, I don't know why we're always fighting. I wish that she wouldn't bring up the same thing from 4 years ago. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm trying. It can't be perfect. And she's saying he's not listening. I feel like he's not trying at all. Two sides of the same coin. So that's fine. But if I didn't look at that pattern, I feel like I would be a bad therapist, because while I shouldn't be biased, I still should look at these things so that I can draw knowledge from cases that I've successfully treated so that I can help further. So that's what I mean today when we're talking about autistic women. That doesn't mean that if you are autistic or you've been diagnosed with autism, if you don't fit this, that you don't have that criteria. This is just patterns that I'm seeing. And it doesn't fit everybody, just some things that I notice, okay? The very first one is preferred. I noticed that a lot of these ladies, they prefer controlled environments for comfort and retreating. This doesn't mean that all of them are like this, but I do notice a lot of ladies who have been diagnosed with autism, they prefer a nice controlled environment to help her to retreat. I have some patients where she might have like her little office and it's decorated the way she wants, and she goes there regardless of what maybe it doesn't matter if she had an argument with her husband or if she had a long day at work or maybe something that made her happy. She still wants to go there, and maybe she wants to play her like handheld Nintendo Switch, and she just in that room for a couple hours, and then later she wants to come out and maybe make dinner, or maybe he's making dinner. I don't know. But often she needs that space. It doesn't mean that she's detached or she's judging him or nothing. It's a lot of sensory, and it can be with anything, right? Sometimes it can even be certain weather changes. It can be driving in a car with the windows down. Some of them like that, some of them do not. And so these things are very difficult for them. A lot of women in general, their traits are not presenting as prominently a lot of times because they were misdiagnosed or they feel like they're not allowed to feel these ways. And so they have a little bit more shutdowns comparison sometimes, okay? It's not as obvious though. The next one is actually very similar. What we were just talking about. We were talking about retreating, but in general, why this happens is a lot of them are more prone to shutting down when she's upset. But it doesn't mean she's not going to come around at one point, but she does shut down a little bit when she's upset or having that emotion because she's still processing how to communicate these feelings, what to do with these feelings. And also, there's a part of it this is more common with women, ladies that have been diagnosed with autism. She might feel like she's not going to be heard, or she's afraid that the conflict might become louder or more out of control from her perspective, and that might be overwhelming and scary for her. And so she shuts down because she's already preparing for that loud, confusing situation for her. I'm not saying you're going to be loud, but she has those experiences, and a lot of them are more sensitive to these types of issues. And so sometimes what happens is she's going to shut down momentarily, okay? The next one is something that I notice very common. These ladies tend to prefer more comfortable, fitted clothing. It makes her feel a little bit less uncomfortable with that suffocating grip that some clothing has, but it also makes her feel a little bit less anxious or uncomfortable, triggered. It's also that sensory. Sometimes a lot of it can also be the texture of clothing. I've noticed that as well. Some of them, I notice it depends on like the sleeve length, long sleeve and short sleeve. And some people are like this in general. It doesn't have to be this particular diagnosis. But often, a lot of times, these types of women, and men have this one too, their environment is also based on how they feel in their body. And so clothing shows that as well. You're going to see that. And I think that it's important. A lot of them like that loose fitted clothing so that they can feel a little bit free and more comfortable, spacious, okay? The next one is more particular to physical intimacy. A lot of these ladies, they have felt misunderstood a lot. A lot of them don't really know how to navigate certain social situations. And so sometimes they may choose, so this is a choice, they choose to remain celibate for long periods of time. This is something that not all of them do, but a lot of them do just because it's easier for them. And often they tend to have, not all of them, but when they get married or when they get comfortable, then that drive increases a lot. And then it's very high frequency. Some of them not so much, but I do notice that. The next one is that they may struggle with understanding particular types of language. Everybody's different, but what I've noticed is sometimes they may struggle with language that's not, it's not that it's indirect, but it's more like language that might be expected to infer. And a lot of people are like this even if they do not have this diagnostic impression. I actually struggle with this a lot, and it's annoying because I wish I could fix it. But often when something is indirect or inferred, a lot of times individuals who have autism or diagnosed with autism, they don't understand that inference. And so it kind of goes over their head, or they can feel that there's some sort of inference, but they're not sure how to pinpoint it, okay? The next one is one of the strongest aspects and attributes when diagnosing this. And I made a video on how this is diagnosed from a psychological perspective based on the psychometrics. This one is one of those, okay? A very strong preoccupation with very specific hobbies. Hobbies might be defined differently. Let's just say there's a video, I don't know, a funny video compilation on YouTube, one specific one, right? And there's a certain point they like this maybe segment, 5 to 15 seconds, whatever it is, and they keep replaying it. And they do that as a form of regulation, and sometimes they might even perceive it as a hobby if you ask them. Another example of a more obvious hobby would be, like I was mentioning, playing the Switch, like continuously very preoccupied with certain things. A lot of times when they play these types of games, they only play specific functioning in the game. So let's say it's like a farming game. They only like certain parts of the game, even if it has nothing to do with the farming part. Maybe they just like running around and making their character jump, or jump on a horse or anything like that. Little details in the game that might be a little bit more specific. The next one is that they actually, a lot of women who are diagnosed with this particular criteria, I do notice compared to men, they're actually more open to expressing themselves. They're just more comfortable discussing it. And a lot of times they are not as triggered as you would expect. A lot of them are fine with it, actually. I've never personally had an issue with this. They seem very open, a lot of them. Everybody's different. And the next one is any sort of sensory issues and other specifics that happen in the bedroom may be challenging even when she loves you. So in the bedroom, something may happen that may be a sensory issue or, certain specific that causes her not necessarily to shut down, but be a little bit uncomfortable or not want to do that particular thing. It has nothing to do with you. It's part of the way she perceives the world and how she feels, okay? I hope this video was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.